Since Patrick Kyote isn't able to join me for the time being, I figured I'd go out and I would find the only person that is possibly as opinionated as me. And Ben, the people might not know this, but we have a big, beautiful show. It's going to be the best show of all time. There's going to be so many good things about it. I'm with Benjamin Allbright. He is the smartest, kindest person, and he's big, beautiful Benjamin Allbright. Trust me.
Hey, feel I'm in the mood for a switch up. I hit the function, hit the rose till I hiccup. I hit the stage and leave with money that's a stick up.
Ben, I hope you appreciated my ham-fisted attempt at a dictator imitation. I guess whatever you would call him. Anyway, let's move right along. Joining me tonight is Benjamin Allbright. As I said earlier, perhaps the only person in Broncos media who is as opinionated as me, if not more. How are you doing tonight, Ben?
I'm doing pretty well, man. How are you?
I'm always great when I get to do shows with you. It really takes me back to, God, what was it, 10 years ago when we used to be on that inferior radio station and that inferior network? And we basically trailblazed for them how to put shows on the internet so that people didn't have to listen live. That was a fantastic time, man. And I just want to tell this story, and you can fill in the blanks, Ben, but I used to have a radio show. The first co-host that I had was Andre Davis, former Bronco player, played most of his career with the Bills. He ended up finishing school, and he had daughters that he had to take care of. And so basically, I had access to a show, but I'm like, nobody wants to just hear me talk at them for 2 to 3 hours. That station already had Brandon Spano doing that 2 or 3 hours a day. And I was like, the last thing that they need is an obnoxious Italian screaming at them on the weekends. So I put out on Twitter when Twitter was like relatively new and not thinking that I would meet anybody. And I was like, hey, I'm looking for a co-host. And Ben, this was before the time there were like a lot of weird people on Twitter. So I wasn't worried about like some bizarre person reaching out to me like, hey, friend, I want to do a show with you. And I'm a convicted felon, but maybe I'll run for president one day. So it's not that big of a deal. But Ben, not a convicted felon, way to go, Ben, reached out to me on Twitter. We had one like kind of brief interaction in the past in real life, but we had never really spoken, never really met. And I remember I went to your profile and I think you were contributing with like Yahoo Sports and like a couple other places. And you had like at the time you had like 10 or 15,000 followers, which back in 2014, 2013 was a massive, massive deal. And I'm like, who is this guy? Like, okay, let's do the show. All right. So the first real conversation Ben and I ever had was technically on our first show. And then I heard Ben talk and I'm like, oh my God, he kind of sounds like Larry the Cable Guy. How is this going to go? And it's history ever since. Ben's career kind of went this direction in terms of radio and media. And I've just kind of been on the sidelines for a while, Ben, and just watching and admiring your work from afar. So long story short, I'm always absolutely thrilled that you stoop down to my level to do a show. But you're known for stooping down to levels way beneath your own, Ben. So this is right in your wheelhouse.
Well, Mom always said never wrestle with a pig. Everybody gets muddy, but the pig likes it. And me, I'm the pig, right? Yeah, that's pretty much how it went. I think in terms of how you and I met. I think our first conversation was Jake Plummer cussing on the air live.
He did, yeah. Jake Plummer was our very first guest. It was the first time. It was the first time that you had like been in a studio doing radio, right?
Yeah. Yes.
And we're all excited because I know Ben, you were a huge Jake Plummer fan. I mean, who wasn't? And we're talking to we talked to him a little bit before the segment started, and we're like, yeah, we'll bring you on, and we're just gonna get into it. And so we welcome in Jake. Maybe our first or second segment ever of our show, which was called Level Up, by the way. And we're like, yeah, Jake, we just want to talk to you about, the use of marijuana in sports and stuff like we were getting into some really deep, heavy topics. And Jake's response is, yeah, let's fucking do it. We're like, okay, we are live on air, Jake. And he goes, "Oh shit, sorry." And Ben's like, "Yeah, we are still live on air, Jake." Very memorable
Oh,
segment with Jake the Snake
that was the
Slumber.
best, like radio magic, man. That was the good stuff, man. And yeah, it's I just got lucky from there, and apparently people keep looking at my social media and they're like, we should hire that guy, and I keep duping him into contracts. So I get to stay on the air and continue to cover this game that we all love, and do that for a living, which beats the hell out of many other things that I could be doing.
Well, and you just got a contract extension, so
Mhm.
shout out to you. Congratulations, well deserved, well earned. Despite what the lowly pig trolls seem to think about it, it's always so hysterical to me, Ben. Before we get into anything, and I promise we'll talk about tangible things eventually. This is the big, beautiful part of the show where we're just going to shoot the shit for a while.
All right.
It's hysterical to me when people are like, "Oh, I'm going to tell your boss what you're saying and what you're doing." Is it valid threat, or like somehow your boss doesn't have access to your can't see your Twitter account?
Oh, they see it. I mean, they see all of it. Yeah, it's pretty funny. One of my favorites was when somebody tried to DM the KOA account, like Twitter account, and so I just responded back from the KOA Twitter account. I'm like, do you want me to just respond here, or do you want me to get on the do you want me to get on my Allbright NFL account and respond to you there? I can, either way. I'm getting all these messages. There's been I think a half a dozen emails over the years, people complaining about me or whatever for various different things. But it's mostly BS, and like I said, it's one of those things. People have had weird problems with me for years, and most of those people are out of the industry now. Actually, most of those people are in jail now. All of them are out of the industry. Most of them are in prison. All those people that accused me like 5, 6 years ago, 3 out of the 4 are in prison now. So the other one's completely out
The
of the
good
industry
odds.
and fired. So like, oh, it's it's fun. I think anytime you have strong opinions on social media and you don't back down from that, people tend to think that you're, that you're somebody that's, I don't know, that you think you're a dick or whatever. Whatever. I don't know. It's funny to me the people that know me in real life who are like, he's nothing like his Twitter account, um, like you've known me for years. I'm not actually a ranting, raving lunatic like I am on my 40% of the time,
Most
but
times. Yeah, most times.
but I mean, I just say like I'm laid back and I just like to have fun and be funny, and that's part of the thing. I think people don't realize that social media is such a mirage that that they get the wrong impression.
Yeah, man, absolutely. And it's funny that you bring up like the people that had reached out, because I think the only real threat that you ever faced in this space was actually with me when the station was contacted by Drew Soicher's people. There's a name
Yes.
for everybody. If you were around Colorado sports media about a decade ago, Drew Soicher was an insensitive prick, and Ben and I called him out on it live on air for pretty much half the show. I mean, that dude caught strays like he was in the ring with Muhammad Ali and Mike Tyson at the same time. And his people had reached out to the station and like it was kind of like a thinly veiled threat. And Ben and I were kind of like, yeah, we do this as like a hobby right now. So we're not too terribly worried about what you have to say. I don't know what you're going to sue us for, because it's not like we said anything that wasn't true. We just called him out on horrible, horrible things that he had said. And then when we were able to move forward, and I think that was the only real time that you faced a somewhat legitimate threat to your
Legally,
media
yes.
career.
Legally,
Legally, yeah.
yes. Yes. No, none of that stuff from years ago, and I posted all my records, like all that stuff's nonsense. But no, the only legal threat we ever had, I think, was that. I may have been worried and it's funny now because it's like you actually typically, I guess, broke the news, but at the time it was not public knowledge that and you got on the air. I think the week I was off, I was like in St.
Oh yeah,
Louis
you
visiting
were you were
family.
quote unquote on location, as we
Yeah,
say.
I forget where I was. And anyway, I wasn't there. And then I came back and you're like, we may have an issue with last week's show. And I listened to this clip and you're like screaming that I guarantee Tiger Woods has used cocaine. And I'm like, okay, yeah, this career's over with. And but no, nothing came of that. And I've never had any legal. I've had some people try to physically threaten or whatever and all that kind of stuff. But you know how that stuff is. People talk a lot of mess and then don't show. And so that is what it is.
Well, and here's the thing, Ben. Like, everyone thought that was such a horrible thing to say, and that was kind of, I think that was actually right before all of the horrible Tiger Woods stuff started
Yeah,
happening. And not
yeah,
only did we not get in trouble for that, that became like our most popular drop
hmm,
of our
yep.
show, to the point where it somehow leaked into other shows. So I'd be listening to the station, and randomly I would hear my own voice say, "I guarantee that Tiger Woods has done cocaine." That was the drop, and I said that live on air, and I was fine. So at that point, Ben, I pretty much felt like I was bulletproof. So I was feeling
Might
really
be,
good about it.
might be.
All right,
That's the thing. Yeah,
let's talk about DT, Becca. That's a fantastic suggestion.
yeah.
It was announced today through no surprise, and kudos to the Broncos organization for absolutely doing the right thing. Dearius Thomas posthumously will be inducted into the Ring of Fame. I mean, obviously, Ben, I'm like a lot of people. I would have loved to see him get inducted, but before he had like spent enough time out of football, right? Like reach that 5-year limit. But obviously they're following the rules, and they did the right thing where it's like immediately, like as soon as he's eligible, they put him in. So any thoughts on that, or do you have any great DT stories to kind of kick us off?
Well, I'm sure you probably have more DT stories than anybody else. I mean, you had a pretty close personal relationship with Dearius. I knew Dearius in passing. Obviously talked to him in the locker room, that kind of stuff. But I didn't have like that kind of relationship that you and your family did with him. I will say, it's this. I've actually known about this for 2 months now, but we're embargoed to keep it quiet since we're a Broncos partner. There's certain news that when we find out from them, we can't talk about. So we've known about this one for a little while, but happy for him. It's a bittersweet thing. Happy that he's getting in. Sad that he wasn't alive for it. Ryan and I actually broke the story of his passing on the air. We were the first people to carry that. That fateful day. I believe it was a Thursday, if I remember correctly.
I remember
Just
you texting me to
yeah,
like kind of ask, and yeah,
yeah. I
man,
was like,
it really came out of nowhere. It was a difficult situation.
yeah, that was one of those things. As I was trying to run the story down while we're on the air before I even had a chance to break it. So I texted you. I wound up getting a hold of his coach and getting a hold of a relative and going from there. But yeah, it was a shocker to a lot of people. And there was a lot of weird speculation afterwards about all that. I don't want to get into all that, but what I will say is Dearius meant a lot to the Broncos fans. I mean, he's not a guy that's going to make the Hall of Fame, but he is a guy that for Broncos fans is a Hall of Fame person, definitely a Broncos Ring of Fame player. And so it's good to see him getting in there. I think there's going to be probably a lot of tears shed, the testimonials, the great stories about him. I think was it Todd Davis told one of them today about getting the chain. I don't know if you saw that
It's
one or not.
I'd never, yeah, I'd never heard that story, but
Yeah,
that's such a Dearius Thomas thing to do.
yeah. The guy would give you the shirt off his back, kind of thing. Give you the, whatever. Um, gave Todd, what was it, like a $15,000 change just because he admired it, kind of thing.
Yeah.
He was that guy, and better than that. I'm sure you've got better stories than I. I could sit here and ramble on and on about what a fun guy he was to talk to in the locker room, but you got the cool stories about Dearius.
I mean, yeah, everything that everyone says about Dearius, it's true. Like, genuinely just one of the coolest, nicest people. Like, he would go over to the Boys and Girls Club of Metro Denver to volunteer all the time because he just absolutely loved kids. And, I could tell stories for an hour, so I'm not going to get too bogged down into that. But one of my favorite things about him. Because he was close with our family, he was incredibly close with my nieces, to the point where my younger niece, Macy, played hockey, and she was number 88, and they did like kind of a jersey swap type of picture. So she had his jersey, he held up hers, and I mean, that was so fantastic. And I remember one of the best things was my older niece, McKenna, who is now a Dallas Cowboys cheerleader, unbelievably enough, went to Cherry Creek High School, was on their dance team, and Dearius went to go see her dance at a football game. And so, of course, like this is right around the peak of Dearius Thomas, right? Everyone in Denver knows who he is. He's one of, if not the best wide receivers in the league, and he shows up to a high school football game not to watch football. I mean, I think he showed up like midway through the second quarter, wanted to see my niece perform because that was just like the relationship that he had with our family. Got approached by a lot of people, of course, because it's Dearius, and took the time to talk to people, took pictures. I think he signed a couple autographs, but only for kids. If it was an adult that came up, he's like, "Oh, sorry, I'm here to watch my little sister dance." And that was just the kind of person that he was. It's like he could have been anywhere doing anything that he wanted. And instead, on a Friday night, he is at a high school football game strictly to just see a member of my family perform at halftime. So, wonderful human being. Obviously, miss him every day. And it still feels weird uh, given the history, like where the Broncos have been and where they're at, you can't tell the story of the Denver Broncos without Dearius Thomas. Like the fact that he's not here, it's still such a surreal thing. And one other thing, and this is kind of out of the blue, but I just wanted to mention this because I feel like it gets forgotten a lot. The very forgettable Super Bowl 48 that they were in, Ben. Nothing good happened that game. We all know that. We remember it. We choose to block it out. But I think the one thing to keep in mind is that Dearius, despite where the game was and how out of hand it was, really from the word go, set a Super Bowl record for receptions in that game. And to my knowledge, still has the record for wide receivers. I know there was a running back from New England that broke it when they ran that chintzy check down offense. And I remember being furious that that was the way that his record was toppled. But we could put an asterisk in there and say that no wide receiver has ever caught more passes in a Super Bowl, despite, and I think where it was, Ben, I mean, they're getting blown out the entire game. And the fact that he seemed like the only guy that just refused to quit on that game encapsulates how he was as a player, as a person, as a teammate, as everything that you can say about him.
Yeah, and I think that that Super Bowl loss also provided the fuel and the fire for the Super Bowl win. Just a couple of years later. I think I think that got everybody, like, we've been so close, and he was one of the guys I think that that probably felt that more than anything. My first real Dearius Thomas memory, I think I was sitting in a bar down there in Tampa with a guy who used to coach in the league, and we were watching the Pittsburgh Steelers take on the Denver Broncos in that playoff game, Tim Tebow. And I sat there and I bet that coach, there's no way Denver pulls this thing off. Sure enough, Denver comes back, and then the opening play of overtime fires off that slant. And yeah, and so like I think my first Dearius memory really is that before I lived in Denver, just watching him will his way to win that game by taking a pass and being like, I have to turn this into a touchdown or we're not going to win this, kind of thing. And he did. And what a phenomenal thing. I think if y'all get a chance to listen to it, because I mean, I was watching the TV at the time. I wasn't even in Denver, but coming to Denver and hearing the Dave Logan call of that
Chills.
play, you get chills listening to that thing. That's one of the all time great calls on one of the all time great plays, and I think getting him in the ring of in the Broncos Ring of Fame is a must. I think it's justified, and I think it's a fitting closure to what it was that he brought to Denver over the course of his career.
Yeah, absolutely. And I want to say this about that play too. This is kind of the character of Dearius and kind of how funny he was, because he would never admit this publicly, but he told us after that touchdown, I was like, man, were you just beyond excited? Like, could you just not even contain yourself? And he was like, I didn't know we won. I said, what? He's like, yeah, like I know they changed the
Yeah.
overtime rules. He's like, I
Hmm.
thought we still needed a stop on defense, and so I wasn't celebrating. And he's like, and I like thought it was weird that everybody was celebrating. Like all my teammates were celebrating the way that they were because I'm like, no, we still gotta win. And I was like, well, that's hilarious because they literally explained the rules because that was the year of like the new overtime rules
Hmm.
where you get a
The field
possession
goal.
if
Yep.
if you get a field goal and then the other team gets a possession. And he's like, yeah, I didn't know. I was like, well, did you know that it took them more time to explain the overtime rules than overtime actually lasted? And he's like, oh, that's awesome. We'll
Yeah.
just we'll just segue, but like R.I.P. Dearius Thomas again into the Ring of Fame, well deserved, absolute no brainer. And the team put out, if you haven't seen it, they put it out on their socials, just a fantastic statement regarding him. They got a statement from his mother, Katrina Smith, who will be in attendance when they honor him for that Giants game. Yeah, Ben.
I will say one thing. We're trying to get together, and that is for you know how you love the Boys and Girls Club. We're trying to get everybody to make an 88-cent donation to the Boys and Girls Club. You know, and if we get 100,000 people to do that, all of a sudden you raised darn near $90,000 for the Boys and Girls Clubs. We can do that. Everybody can spare a dollar. 88 cents donation in Dearius Thomas memory of the Boys and Girls Club. There's a movement going around. It's going to pick up some steam. But anyway, that's sort of the thing.
That's fantastic. I don't know, Ben, do you have a lot of followers on Twitter? Do you think might see it if you put it out into the Twitterverse,
I think,
perhaps? Yeah, we
uh,
can get
yeah,
that going.
I'm waiting on the sort of the whole thing to come together, and I'll retweet that at
The
that point in
go
time with
ahead.
the link. But yes,
No, fantastic. Um, one of the topics of conversation that's been really dominating the press, and of course it's because it's the off season and literally nothing is happening unless you want to watch Shador Sanders throw 7-on-7 routes, because we're seeing a lot of that. And I love Shador Sanders, but like let's all just mellow out because it's May. Um, NFL players are officially allowed to participate in flag football in the Olympics in 2028, Ben. So we'll start with the softball, okay? And I want to know what players, and I'm going to make this I'm gonna make it change a little bit. What Denver Bronco would be best on the Olympic team, and you cannot say Patrick Surtain. So, which of the players on the current roster, excluding Pat Surtain, do you think would have the best shot to like make the Olympic team? And then after that, we're going to discuss if what Doucette said, the U.S. Olympic quarterback, who has famously said that he's a better flag football quarterback than Patrick Mahomes would be, or that he's his intelligence of flag football is greater, or however he worded it. Basically said he was a better quarterback than Patrick Mahomes when it came to flag football. But first question, what Broncos player, excluding Pat Surtain, would have the best chance to make that team?
Marvin Mims. Flag football is a speed game. It's a speed and lateral movement game, and so Marvin Mims to me would be the guy. You can move him all over. You can hit him on the jet sweep, and he's got the ability with the ball in his hands. You can put him on the fly or the post, and he can beat guys. So he would be. Now,
Well,
keep
Landon
in
is
mind,
saying Nick Gargiulo. What do you think about that, Ben?
well, they don't
I
even
don't
use
know.
offensive
Maybe if he's
linemen. Yeah, they don't even use offensive linemen. But you know what? Put the ball in Gargiulo's hands and let that majestic mullet flow. I'm here for it. No, I think. By the way, the rules are only one player per NFL team. So
right.
just so everybody knows, there's only one per NFL team. So I would suggest that if it's not going to be Sertan, who you instantly block there, then Marvin Mims is probably the guy. You don't need. It's not a game where you need size. Size is not necessarily an advantage unless unless you're a receiver and you can jump out the gym and that kind of stuff. Like Megatron would absolutely dominate that sport, but it's a speed game, it's a spacing game and a speed game, and so you can be much smaller, especially if you're faster, and succeed in the flag football. So I would say Marvin Mims is probably the guy. Plus, if they have any kind of throw off or punt, whatever, he adds value there too.
I'm gonna go off the beaten path a little bit here, and because I'm trying to think of like best athletes, right? Like best athletes on the team. I think Nick Benito would be really interesting to see play flag football. I mean, I think he ran like a 4.5. He's incredibly long, so you would think that would help allow him to pull flags better. Could probably play both sides of the ball if you really need him to. And so, just like thinking of like freak athletes, because he's big, strong, long, fast, everything that you would want out of a flag football player. Uh, so here's the question, Ben, and this is really the burning question on everybody's mind. And Doucette has been absolutely raked through the coals. And honestly, kudos to him for like doubling and tripling down. He's not going to give an inch. And I will say, like, I respect that the hell out of him for it because he's right. They have an Olympic flag football team that already exists, and they want to bring in pro players. So what I want to know from you, Ben, is does he actually have a case where he's saying, and granted, he's saying like they should at least get a shot, which I agree with. Like you might as well give him a shot, have a pro team versus the flag Olympic team, and see who wins, and see if his argument holds any water. But would this be a situation where he's correct, or would this be like Olympic basketball before the NBA players were allowed to play? And it's like it's close during the Olympics, and then as soon as they bring the professionals in, they're beating Lithuania by 82.
Well, the thing about the international game of basketball is very close to the NBA brand of basketball. Flag football is nothing like the NFL. You mentioned one of the things you even mentioned when you were talking about Nick Bonito a minute ago. You said strong. You don't have to be strong in flag football. You just got to be fast. It's a space game, and so that's one of those things where I think he does have a point. I mean, think about it. If you worked your whole life to get a sport to the recognition point where it's an Olympic, it becomes an Olympic event, and then all of a sudden they want to replace you with people from this other similar sport to come in because they might be better athletes. You'd be pretty salty about it too, And so I think Doucette's got a point. I don't think that Doucette's ever in danger of accidentally being better than Patrick Mahomes at anything, but he understands the flag game. I think better than Mahomes probably does at this point, simply because he's got so many reps in it. You know, I mean, anytime anybody's got experience doing something for years and years, and Doucette does. He's old for a flag football player too. He's like 37 or something like that. He's also 5'7", 140. Just in case you were wondering there. But to be
And
honest with you,
his arm slot kind of looks like yours, Ben. Like he throws the ball a little bit like you do.
it's a little funky delivery or whatever.
Yeah.
He's got that like a shot put throw because his rotator cuff's worn out like mine. But no, I mean, but he has a point in the sense that these guys worked their whole lives and did what they needed to do to get this sport to this level. They've been highly competitive. I do believe that they could use an injection of NFL talent. But who are you pushing off that works their whole life for no money to get this sport to where it is, and their shot at winning a gold medal? I mean, it sucks. So that's gonna be one of those things. The interesting thing is, USA Football is who runs this selection process. Now, USA Football's got a board of governors. It's supposed to be 15. Right now, they only have 12 on the website. Two of those terms have elapsed. One of them is, Mark Murphy of the Packers. The COO of the Colts is on that board. There's several different people that are on the board. Roger Goodell only gets input in like three of those seats. Um, so USA Football and the NFL are two different things. USA Football is going to pick and select a team. They've still got to pick and select a coach here. They've got a coach that's been doing it for a while, but they've got to figure out what they're going to do with that. I don't know. I mean, there's a part of me that's like, yeah, it might be cool to see Lamar Jackson and Tyreek Hill beating up on, men for a change. But, it's beating up on a French corner. I want to see who doesn't want to see, Jamar Chase shaking a South Korean corner out of his shoes, I mean, and beating up on him 250 to nothing, at that point. There's a part of me that's there for the comedy of that, but there's a part of me that's like, these other guys worked their asses off their whole lives for no money, love of the sport, and got this thing there. They deserve a shot too.
Yeah, man. And you're right. It sucks. But we're talking about competition. We're talking about the potential of a gold medal. And I don't care if Doucette is the best flag football quarterback on the planet. I mean, he's not because I exist. So he, at the very least, is the second best flag football quarterback of all time. If you don't believe me, Ryan Edwards would like to chime in. And if you don't believe Ryan Edwards, I mean,
Ryan's rooting for Russia, though.
aside from his opinion on pumpkin spice lattes and Top Gun, Ryan is a very credible source. When it comes to sports, okay, you would just say that, especially football. If it comes to football, I think Ryan Edwards is the foremost authority in the entire country on who's better than whom and what's better than what. So if you don't believe me, Ryan Edwards in the chat. I was going to say flesh, but he's not here. And I also won 7 flag football championships in college. We just ran through people. Okay. But that's beside the point. As much as I would, as much as I want to like give this credence, and I do, like, I really want him to like prove people wrong. And I don't know if we'll see it, Ben, but if we could see a flag football game between the NFL players and this Olympic team, and like really get a sense of it. Because I do think he has a point. You're right. Flag football is so entirely different, and there's absolutely something to that. But there's also something to be said about the fact that guys in the NFL are the top 0.000000001% of athletic human beings. And I'm pretty sure if you just threw Lamar Jackson back there with Jamar Chase, with Justin Jefferson, I don't really want Tyreek Hill representing my country, so I'm just going to go ahead and leave him off of this. But insert any burner wide receiver. And honestly, Ben, like some of these receivers are so good, you could probably throw a 4.5, 4.6 guy out there, even though that's considered terribly slow, like Pat Bryant, which is silly. I feel like they're still cooking these guys. And you throw a Lamar Jackson or a Kyler Murray, someone like that back there, who can literally just run around. Like, do we honestly think that there's a human being from another country that plays flag football is going to chase down Lamar Jackson or Kyler Murray? They're going to run around back in that pocket for 30 seconds if they want to, and then eventually he's just going to find Jamar Chase wide open. Duce can't do that. These Olympic guys can't do that. And the reason that flag has to be different is because they can't do that. They like the pros would go out there and it's just like 4 verts every time until they stop it. And then you have a leak out option, and then they're probably not even stopping that. The Team USA, the Olympic flag football team, would have to have diligent plays, like different kind of plays for every single scenario. It's like, all right, are they too high? Are they one high? Are they going man? Are they going zone? We can throw these amount of passes behind the line, and we're going to do all of this trickeration. NFL guys don't have to do that. In my opinion, I think they're showing up and they're just dominating everybody that plays. So to that end, I would like to see one Olympic Games where it is just the Olympic team. And I know it's hard to say because then guys like, we wouldn't see a guy like Lamar Jackson on the team because, the next time the Olympics come around, he might be too old. Or Patrick Surtain, he might not want to be in the Olympics when he's, I think 32, 33 years old. So I think there would be some give and take with it, but I just want to see, like, just for a measuring stick, to see how much better. Like, if we're not going to get a game of like the pros versus Joes, if you will, there has to be some sort of way to measure the difference in skill level with these guys. And I think at the end of it, that's kind of what would win out.
Well, I think there's 2 solutions here. One, I think the current team should get to scrimmage whatever team they make of pros before it happens. I think we should
Yeah.
televise that here. It'd make a ton of money, and you get to watch, and they get to, and then you kind of get to see. And then the other solution to this is, for me, is you hire the current flag football team as coaches. Coaches get a gold medal in the Olympics. I don't think that there's a limit on the number of coaches that you can have. My question on that has gone unanswered to this point, but I've not seen anything in terms of coaching staff that yet your coaching staff would be limited. So what I'm saying is you basically hire the current flag football team as coaches so they can coach up these NFL guys on the mindset that they should have. And, oh, by the way, you get them the gold medal that they probably deserve for getting this sport to where it is.
Did you hear who's actually very interested in coaching the flag football team for the Olympics?
Please tell me it's not
Peyton
Jordan
Manning.
Hudson. I mean Bill Belichick.
Peyton Manning said that he was very interested. And here's why I would like to see this, Ben. Peyton Manning coaches his son's little league youth football team. I don't even know if it's tackle. It might be flag, or it might be that weird flag hybrid where all the kids wear like legit pads, like shoulder pads, helmets, and everything, but then it's still flag football. I don't know who exactly that is for, or what they're parading around. I mean, that's like skim milk trying to say it's milk. It's like, no, you're water, and everybody knows it. I would love to see Peyton Manning coach just because he would take it entirely too seriously. And I realize how silly that sounds because taking the Olympics too seriously, Peyton Manning would show up and have a 500-page playbook. Because
Mhm.
if it's the Olympics, he's not leaving anything to chance. You're going to have all these different audibles, all these different sorts of calls. So I need to see Peyton Manning as a coach and just let him run with it.
I need Peyton and Tom Brady as co-head coaches just for the bickering. Like I need like I need them both bickering
One
about
final say.
right. Yes, just bickering at each other the whole time. And if we could just get Rob Gronkowski and Pat McAfee on the call, just so that it's so brotastic that like you can't you're just like rolling your eyes with how brotastic it is.
This is what dreams are made of. I don't know why people aren't hiring us to produce content because I can't think of anything that would be better than what we just laid forth. I mean, It's a home run, it's a grand slam, it's a slam dunk, it's every sports analogy for 100% fantastic.
Bring Nick Saban in as defensive coordinator. He's not doing anything
The
right now.
possibilities are endless.
Dude,
Yeah, he's got a
he's
lot of
got the
time
whole
on his
he's got like
hands.
NFL players out there with flags on doing like 500 push-ups, so just sweating them.
Oh. Segues are weird, so let's just talk about it. OTAs officially started today in the biggest who cares headline of the week, Ben. It's fantastic. Football is back. And in reality, guys are showing up in their shorts and t-shirts. Unless you're Russell Wilson, then you're probably in your full-on fucking uniform, but who does that surprise? And it's just really workouts. It's glorified workouts. They're going through some plays, they're getting caught up. But this is basically like this is gives the coaches an excuse to kind of like monitor the players, if we're being completely honest. Like OTAs aren't necessary. And I think that it's always funny when people make a big deal out of the players who are not at OTAs, except for Hassan Reddick, because apparently he doesn't really feel like ever showing up to anything. And maybe he would want to reprieve himself of a little bit more goodwill after what he did, but I digress. Is there anything exceptional that you can even tell us about OTAs? I mean, I'm sure that's why some of the people are wanting to watch. Like, they want any sort of tidbit, but this is install time. Is anything exciting happening in the facility?
Well, I mean, install if you find it exciting is the excitement. As media, we don't really get to cover it as much as we want to because Sean Payton hates the media and makes sure that we get the absolute bare minimum in terms of being able to cover it. So we get like one day to be able to cover it. As far as that kind of
Maybe
stuff
you should
goes.
be Kay Adams, Ben. That's kind of on you.
Yeah, yeah. That is my fault for not winning the genetic lottery. But
And I understand, like, you guys wear the same size shirt. Do you think maybe that would be deterring him?
her face way better than mine. This is CGI. I actually look like the Crypt Keeper if I don't have this filter on. It's, I think, I think for a lot of us, the big questions are about Bo Nix year two. Typically with quarterbacks, there is some regression in year two. Whether or not that's actual regression or the league catching up to you, as in getting a year of tape and offseason to study it, that kind of stuff, is the case. Like for instance, I don't think C.J. Stroud regressed last year. I think the Houston Texans kept the offense the same, the protection scheme's the same, and everybody figured it out. And then they came in year two and they realized that they were isolating the backside tackle one on one and shifting four guys to the right, and then they could just sugar the right hand side and blitz two guys to the left, and one guy couldn't stop it. And that's pretty much how you beat Houston last year, which got the OC fired, and we all saw what happened there. But with Bo Nix, how much the league catches up to him and sort of like, okay, he does these things, but he doesn't do these things. When do we blitz him? Do we not? Those kinds of things, and how the league adjusts to Bo Nix. I want to see how Bo Nix adjusts to getting his back to being healthy. I mean, Bo broke. He had fractures in his back last year toward the end of the
Yeah.
season. We saw what happened after that. You saw that interception performance against Indy. He was in obvious pain. How the back is healed and what he's able to do at that point. I think there are a lot of questions surrounding, exactly. We sort of know what the floor is with Bo. Now we want to know, what he can become, and I think people are excited about it. So I think that's the main thing people are kind of keyed in on, and then what the rest of this offense is going to look like as it becomes more and more Sean Payton's offense. As he gets rid of certain players and drafts his own guys to sort of replace them. And I think everybody wants to see what RJ Harvey in the run game looks like. I think they want to see what Pat Bryant looks like. I think we all know the defense is going to be pretty kick-ass. But Jade, maybe it's Yade Baransoft J, I don't know. See what he can do there in the slot. But I think that they want to see the young players and they want to see Bo Nix 2.0, and I think that's the thing everybody wants to see.
And for what it's worth, Ryan wanted to chime in. Dave Logan saw practice today, told me our new putter is incredible for what it's worth.
Well,
Let's
he's got
put another shrimp on the barbie.
Yeah,
He's
he's got an
Australian,
incredible
right?
mustache. I'll say that. If he, I told him to bring that thing back. When we talked to him when he got drafted, if we could get a little wax on that stash and get that thing
Yeah,
out here.
the little rolly
Yeah,
fingers
Jeremy.
mustache. Absolutely.
Yeah, Jeremy Cross, the pride of yeah. He's The best athlete from his town since like the 1930s, some cricket player back in the 30s. So
Why does it seem like there are so many punters that come out of Australia? Is it just because, like, it's upside down and there's something with physics that allows them to learn how to punt the ball better? Is it
it's
because the toilet
I mean
flushed
Aussie
the
rules
opposite way?
football.
Because that'll freak you out.
Aussie rules football, man. They punt different down there. They get used to punting different, and they kind of got a different mentality. I don't know if you've ever been to Australia. It's a fun place. Stay on the coast. Don't go inland. Everything will kill you. But is they're a different breed of person there. Aussies are uniquely wired for American football. I'll just say that.
Well, let's just hope that we don't have to see a lot of how good he really is. It's like hearing how good this guy is as a punter is giving me like Vietnam flashbacks to last year when the Bears took Torrey Taylor in the third. I think it was the third round, and Caleb Williams had kind of famously said to him, "It's like, yeah, we're not going to be punting a lot, so." It's nice that you're here, but you're going to be mostly on the bench. And then I think they led the league in punts, or he had the second most punts of the entire league. So I don't want to get too much into the punter talk. It's like, yeah, hopefully he's good. I mean, he can't be a hell of a lot worse than we've had. I feel like punting at altitude should lend itself to help out the punter a little bit. And it just seems that we've gotten very erratic punter play, if you can say. And I don't want to take too much time on this, Ben, but it's like, how much of an effect is it really going to have? Like, how much better can he be, and what kind of effect will that have than like what we've had in the past with Riley Dixon and whoever freaking preceded him? I can't even remember.
Sam Martin. I think the
Martin was like 4 punters ago, though.
yeah
They
Corliss
kind of
Waitman
cycled through
maybe.
some dudes.
Oh,
Yeah, that's a name.
there you go. Scoreless Waitman. No, I mean, I think it does affect you, but getting more air or going further affects you in multiple. It's not just a net add to a punter because if you're a placement punter, right? So you like pinning the ball down the coffin corner, pin a ball inside the five, and you're used to it traveling a certain distance when you do something, and now you've got less resistance. You got to either dial it back, you got to change your angle and trajectory. Punting at altitude is different. And so there's more involved, I think, than just hey, we get plus, the ball's going to go further, and we get plus stats for that. Well, okay, but we don't want it to be a touchback every time. We want to be pinning people inside the coffin corner there, and so I think that's part of it. He'll learn how to do that. That was one of the things. I mean, he talked about being a directional punter. He said all the right things when we talked to him right after he got drafted. So I like it. I like the pick, and the dude looks like just an absolute shoe in to fit in Denver with the personality type and all that kind of stuff. So I am looking forward to to seeing what he can do and hopefully hopefully be a credit to the punter position here in Denver.
Well, and the best part, Ben, is McMahon is long gone, and so he no longer has the ability to ruin a punter that we bring in. But that's another discussion for another day. I think we've discussed punting probably much more than we
Trying to
needed
punt
to.
on this topic.
So, yeah, I think so. So, harkening back to what you were saying about this team, and this is kind of what I want to close with. Obviously, everybody knew the expectations last year were incredibly low. A lot of people were saying, not reputable sources. I'm talking people like PFF who just do like fake football breakdowns. We're saying that this was the worst roster in the NFL. They went on to win 10 games, made the playoffs. But now that's the floor, Ben. So it's a little bit of a double-edged sword what they've done because the expectations are okay, well, you've added a safety, you've added a linebacker, you've added weapons, you've added pieces. This is marketably a better team than they were last season on paper. So their floor has to be 11 games. And I know you and I have kind of talked about this. This is kind of when the clock starts for Sean Payton. Last year was considered a throwaway. You had a rookie quarterback. You had the worst roster in the league. You were still reeling from the Russell Wilson contract and life after that, and trying to put together some semblance of a roster. I mean, really, they found some great bargain bin deals in free agency and just guys off the street, and it led them to 10 games. Now Sean Payton is going into his fourth year. third year. I'm sorry, third year here in Denver. He wildly, not just Sean, but the entire team wildly exceeded the expectations. It feels like Bo Nix was a hit. So now the clock starts. And I feel like if they're not winning double-digit games consistently after they were able to do so last season, I think someone's going to have to pay for these alleged or these potential transgressions. Would you say that like this is starting to become like the do or die time for Sean Payton? And if he doesn't succeed the way he did last year, what will that discussion look like?
Well, let's start with the first part of that. And you can be a better football team and not win as many games. Part of that can be the schedule, the way the ball bounces, whatever. I think that this is a stronger roster than last year. Sure, I thought last year's roster wasn't that bad. I mean, everybody calls me a wet blanket, but I said this defense was gonna be a top defense in the league. The offense, it was just a question of when it got going. It took 5 6 weeks for it to really start to pick up steam and get going. Um, I think the question is again, what have people figured out about Bo Nix? And can this team stay healthy? And the possibility exists for double digit wins. I think the 9 to 11 wins is probably the sweet spot for this team. I realize that's a cliche thing to say, but it kind of is. The schedule is going to be tough. You've got multiple Thursday night football games. You've got an overseas game, no bye week after that. In a game that would normally be pretty easy, you would think the Giants, right? But that sort of
Oh,
becomes a
and
trap.
that's a Sean Payton decision, right? Like, don't
Yeah,
they have like the league has or the team has to approve it with the league to not have a bye week following a
right.
game in across the seas?
Right, and they were the only team that did. Like for instance, the Browns, who are going to be playing in London the week before, did the same thing where they're not taking the bye if they get back. It's one of those things that you're going to have 2 bye weeks when they do the new CBA. You're going to have 2 bye weeks in the season. They need to do bye weeks before Thursday night football. I've been lobbying for that since they instituted Thursday night football. I don't know why they don't do it. It's stupid. They need to fix that. Anyway, this is a tough schedule for the Broncos, though. It's a tougher schedule than it was last year, and so that's the thing. Yes, the roster is better, but also the conditions are going to be a lot tougher, and so it's going to be fascinating to see how they handle that adversity and how they're able to do this. I think when we went ahead and picked the schedule, I think I picked 10 wins just on paper. There's going to be injuries between now and then. Injuries to other teams, injuries to the Broncos. We've been relatively healthy. We were relatively healthy, and even being relatively healthy, we were able to overcome the injuries that we had last year. We lost Alex Singleton, and nobody ever mentioned it. It was like one of those, like Cody Barton came out of nowhere with all the athleticism of a Josie Jewell and managed to hold it down, at the inside backer position. And so,
It's nice
we
that you
got
think he has as much athleticism as Josie Jewell.
yeah, I mean that was a backhanded insult. It wasn't even a compliment. But Cody, bless his heart, did his did his thing last year. I mean, he did. You got excellent production out of guys. There were some times where it felt like we crept up on some teams, but conversely, there were also some games where we had some bad breaks. The Kansas City game at Arrowhead, I think everybody knows about, obviously. Um, what I thought was poor decision making in the Cincinnati game, another game the Broncos could have won. Now you're not going to get
Los
games where you
Angeles
get the
game, the
yeah,
following game. Yep.
right. Both those games I thought were poor
Or the
decision
game
making.
before, yeah.
I felt like coaching lost those. Then you win a game against Kansas City's backups. You're not going to get a game like that this year. There was the game against the Jets where you traded missed field goals at the end. Either way, could have won it. So there's a lot of different things where the ball bounced one way or the other last year, and it could have swung the win total one way or the other. I think that this is about a 10-win football team. I think it's a wild card football team. Ball bounces right, you could get to 13, maybe win the division. Ball bounces wrong, you could be at 9, maybe even 8 wins. But I believe it's a wild card team, and I think the wild cards are going to come either out of the AFC North or out of the AFC West. I think the rest of these divisions are the AFC South is a joke. And then the
Terrible.
AFC East outside of Buffalo is really a joke, to be honest with you. I mean,
Yeah.
I get that Vrabel's there with the Patriots, and they'll be better. They won't be a doormat, but they're not going to be good. Miami, as long as Tua Bridgewater's there, is not going to be what they need to be. And then the Jets, I mean, they're going to be digging out of that hole for a little while. So you've got Justin Fields, who, according to practice reports, has looked abysmal so far in practice. So and you can go check Connor Rogers' feed if you want to read those, and make sure I'm not being a hater or whatever. But like, it feels like the wild cards are going to come out of the North or the West, and so that's the thing. I mean, you got to come out there, you got to play well. You got a tough schedule again, a really tough schedule this year. Even though I think you got better.
Yep. So let me ask you this, Ben, and then I'll get you out of here. And I, of course, appreciate you always joining me and giving me your incredibly valuable time. Now that the offseason has pretty much been set in terms of moves, like maybe they'll pick up a guy here and there, add a couple of bodies for camp, and if there is an injury, hit the wire, whatever. But as it stands right now, where would you grade their off-season moves? And is there anything in particular that you would have done differently, whether it be, targeting someone different or someone else in free agency, or maybe like approaching the draft a little bit differently? Like you and I had discussed it, where it was like, we really like the first three picks. And, I guess it was confusion maybe more about like some of the remaining picks, like the middle round picks. And so anything that you would have done different and the grade that you would give them for what they were able to accomplish in terms of improving this team and filling any sort of holes that they had.
I think they mostly filled their holes. I would have gotten another tight end more than just the prospect that they got in Caleb Lohner.
But you're saying that they did what with the holes?
Filled them, yes. Did
Sorry, I
not
just
real
want to make sure that I heard you
Did not
correctly.
realize that existed. Now that I know that that exists, that is the thing. Yes, I think they did a good job with. I think they did a good job with all that. I would say I would give it an A minus. I thought it was a pretty good offseason. You didn't have to do a whole lot. The concerns would be that maybe you didn't do enough in the tight end room, especially like Ingram's not an inline guy. He's really a big slot. He's not even really a tight end. He's a big slot. And the only tight end you got was a guy who's got 70 snaps since seventh grade. That's a question mark. The high price free agents that you brought in all have injury concerns. Greenlaw obviously has had a little tweak to his. He'll be back though. Hufanga's coming back off major injury. Ingram's had injury issues, so that's a question mark. So those are the only things that I think keep it from being,
Sounds
a
like these
perfect.
guys need to look up Vitanzi therapy while they're out here, Ben.
Look, I was stocked into Malone. I was setting you up for the dunk there. I threw it up there. You dunked it home. We're good.
I don't
Um,
want to be Carl Malone. He's a child pornographer. Pass on that.
well, Predator, but yes, that's probably a good thing. We'll call it Jokic and whoever else you want to be there. Aaron Gordon, you take your pick. Um, but at the end of the day, I mean, what would I have done different? I mean, the only thing I think you could have done different was at the draft pick portion there at 20. The Broncos did not expect Jade Barron to be there. He was number nine, the number nine player on the board. They expected him to go to Miami. When he didn't go to Miami, they expected Arizona to take him. They didn't take him, and he kind of fell in their lap. And so it was one of the nine blue chip players that they had in this draft, or purple sticker, however you grade it out. And they felt like they had to take him because he was far and away BPA. What they were going to do is trade out of that pick with the New York Giants. They had planned on moving back, and they were going to use those picks to take Travion Henderson and Mason Taylor. And so, depending on how you view Jade Barrett and how you view those other two players, that's the only real other thing they could have done a little bit differently. And if they'd done those things, then obviously they wouldn't have taken Harvey. They'd have taken somebody else there. And that down trace sort of kicks itself down a little bit. But I think overall, I think they did pretty well. The question is just rather would you rather have had Trey Henderson and Mason Taylor or Jade Barron? And Barron certainly shored up an area that they felt like they needed to shore up. I know everybody likes Jaquan McMillian, but they felt like he was the liability on defense last year, and they feel like Barron is not going to be that. So overall, I think a great offseason. I think it's nice to sort of have the quarterback and have most things settled so you can kind of take luxury picks like project tight end and a punter and things like that.
And I want to point this out because sometimes taking best player available or taking the guy that falls in your lap that you don't expect to be there, sometimes it pans out, sometimes it doesn't. And we've seen examples of both. And really, most notably, the one that's coming to mind of a situation where it did not pan out quite how they wanted because of injuries and everything was the Shane Ray pick. I really like the pick. I mean, Shane Ray was a projected top 10 pick. I know he got busted with weed. It was something like a week before the draft. So, of course, that's going to tank his stock. And that was 100% a situation where the Broncos never in a million years thought that Shane Ray was lasting all the way to their pick. He kind of fell in their laps. And I think the problem, like one of the issues, first off, obviously they were stacked. Those were the Von Miller, DeMarcus Ware days, and Shaquille Barrett was actually the undrafted rookie from that class as well. So an unbelievable room. So certainly not a need, kind of like the cornerback room right now. Not the biggest need that they had going in. But I think the difference, aside from like Shane's injuries, and if he doesn't have that freak wrist injury where it's mistreated by Steve Antonopoulos, again, another discussion for another day, but we can certainly get into it. In fact, maybe I'll get Shane Ray on the show to tell everyone all about it. Spoiler alert. Anyway, I think the main issue with that, and I've talked to Shane about this, is they did not have a plan for Shane. You have to have a plan for your first round pick. I mean, ideally, Ben, you have a plan for all of your picks, but man, first round, that kind of capital, whoever you are investing in at that point of the draft, you have to have some sort of discernible plan. They had no plan for Shane Ray because in all of their mocks, he was never there. He was never a viable option. And then when he was there, they were like, well, let's just take him and then we'll figure it out as we go. And the problem was they never really figured it out. And if you look back when, DeMarcus Ware had some injury stuff that year, Shane Ray looked fantastic. But again, you have a guy that you took in the first round with a very premium pick who is, for all intents and purposes, sitting on your bench and only getting a handful of snaps every game. And who could blame him? You have two Hall of Fame edge rushers on the team at the same time. So the only thing that would give me trepidation, and I think that this is a much better organization. I don't see, a guy like George Paton, I don't think that he's just kind of flippantly taking a player because he's BPA necessarily. I think they absolutely did their homework more than the regime that took Shane Ray. But as long as we don't have a situation like that where they're like, oh, we didn't expect him to be here. We're not really sure what he's going to do. Is he going to be inside? Is he going to take over for Jaquan? Is he going to be outside and maybe relieve Riley Moss? Is he going to start on the bench and, we'll work him in as we see fit? Is he going to get some reps at safety? As long as that's not the case, where they're just like, oh, we're not really sure, but we'll figure it out. That's the only thing that gets me worried about this specific situation and taking BPA in that sense.
Yeah, he's going to be the slot corner. Like I'll spoil it. He's unless he falls flat on his face, he's going to be the slot corner. I mean, they're going to make him earn it over Jaquan, but that's really what that is that he'll be the slot corner, and Riley and Pat will be the corners on the outside. Hufanga and Jones will be the safeties, and we the front seven. So that's really the plan. They'll move him around like when they do. You remember when Vance had he had Will Parks and he kind of moved him around a little bit at times. There may be some of that in dime packages where you make him a dime backer and you can bring Jaquan on, those kinds of situations, or you can bring a PJ Lock in as well, have a 3 safety rotation. There's some versatility that he gives them, but he's going to be the slot corner. Like that's going to be his job.
Last thing, Ben, just give me one name of a guy that you think will have a massive leap between last year and next year. Maybe a guy that not a lot of people are talking about, an under the radar person. I know you definitely have a very good pulse on this team. Who is a guy that the fans really need to watch out for and you think is a budding superstar?
Oh, Vele. I mean, and I don't think that's under the radar. I've been pretty vocal about it. They had big plans for him last year, and if he hadn't gotten the fractured ribs early in the season, that would have been a thing. He's going to be the guy. He's the guy that they're prepping. I mean, I know everybody's talking about Pat Bryant in that draft pick, but Vele is a guy that they were already bringing up to potentially replace Cortland. He can replace Lil Jordan, and he can play both those positions. He can play the X and he can play the point when they run the bunch on the other side. He's a sure-handed possession guy, which Bryant is as well. And he's not afraid to get out there and throw the body around. So look for Devon Vele to become kind of the third down specialist in this offense and be a guy that replaces all of Lil Jordan Humphrey and Josh Reynolds and some of Cortland Sutton, over on the X side as well.
Yeah, I think that's a fantastic one. And what I want to add to that, and something that I think maybe a lot of people don't realize, one of the reasons that you saw him start kind of slow and maybe never even like fully find his footing, like he would have a really good game, he would break out a little bit, and then he would disappear for a little bit. I talked to Tim Patrick about this, who is a huge fan of Vele. So I'm glad that you brought that up. And he's also a huge fan of Troy Franklin, for what it's worth. One of the reasons that Tim was like surprised that he got released, not even necessarily the timing of it, but because he had been around the Sean Payton offense the entire year before. I understand, obviously, he had the injury, but he's in the building, he's in the room, he understood the offense. And I know we had talked about it, Ben, like the year that Sean Payton was here, like his first year under Russell Wilson, Tim Patrick was basically going to be their Michael Thomas. Like the entire offense was going to run through him. He, of course, had the injury for the second year in a row, and it kind of threw a wrench into things. And I think that was another reason that he was really surprised about the release. But something that you don't think about and you don't necessarily consider with these young guys, Tim told me it is an incredibly difficult offense to learn, and it is even more difficult to master. So you have a guy, it doesn't matter that he's older, and I know that was one of the reasons that they liked him. He was an older, more mature guy, but at the end of the day, he was still a rookie, and he was not prepared really throughout the entire season to learn the role that Tim Patrick had mastered, had learned, and like had a full grasp on. And that was why you saw, that perceived drop off in wide receiver. And so now that he has that year under his belt, and again, like Tim was a huge fan of his, and he said if there was anybody on the team that was like up for the task of like filling that void and understanding the system as much as they needed to be moderately productive, Vele was that guy. And so I think that's a fantastic guy to bring up, because having that entire year of the Sean Payton offense under your belt and understanding all of these subtle nuances, I think he'll be able to play a little bit faster because he's not going to be overthinking things. And I think some of those concentration drops that we saw out of Vele, and there weren't many, but there were definitely a few. In fact, I think he had 2 during the playoff game in Buffalo. That's the situation where those concentration drops start to fade out and you don't see them as often because you're playing more loose. It's second nature. You know exactly what you need to do and where you need to be at any given time. And so, yeah, I'm with you 100%. Devon Vele, definitely a guy to look out for. Ben, anything else before we get you out of here?
Keep your eye on Audric Estime, man. Obviously they made a bit of a commitment to him coming back this year, despite the year that he had last year. And Harvey, everybody's excited about him, but plays a little bit of a different role. So keep an eye on Estime this year as well. Other than that, hey, thanks for having me, man. It's always fun to get to do this.
Always such a blast. I love doing shows with you. Maybe at some point you'll get to a situation where you love it enough to have me on your show. But until that time, I guess I can just keep having you onto Altitude Adjustment. It's fine. Give Dave Tepper my number. We can be buddies. And you already know that you're going to get fantastic content out of me. And I promise to be on my best behavior. In fact, really quick, if I remember correctly, when we did a radio show together, of the two of us, you were the one that cussed live on air and had to be bleeped,
I
and
did.
not me.
I did, and I've
So
only done that. I've
clearly,
only done that once in 6 years now at KOA. So
so clearly I am much more professional than you, but I don't think that I'm telling the people anything that they don't already know. My
no, you're
name
fucking
is
right.
Mario Batanzi. That handsome gentleman over there is Benjamin Allbright. We thank y'all so much for joining us tonight. We love you, and we'll see you later. Have a good night. Bye, everybody.
Hey, feel I'm in the mood for a switch up. I hit the function, hit the rose till I hiccup. I hit the stage and leave with money that say stick.